We're going to go ahead and get started here with just a few warm-up exercises. So we've got our warm-up going in with ham sweeps, quad rocks, and shoulder cars. And then we've got a circuit of marches, zombie kicks, lateral squats, bent over A's, snow angels, shoulder taps, rotating push-ups, and reverse lunges. So a lot of exercises all in one circuit, kind of getting the full body moving together. And then once we go twice through that, we're going to go into our cool down and start getting things stretched out and relaxed for the rest of the day. So without further ado, hopping right into it, we're going to get into our hamstring sweeps. So bringing one foot forward, pointing the toe up. We're going to extend the hands back behind the hips, reaching down and sweeping up, standing all the way to straight, coming back down, sweeping and standing up, getting nice and long stretches, keeping the belly button sucked into the spine here, keeping our back nice and tall, even as we lower the chest down towards the floor, keeping everything nice and long through the torso. Go ahead and switch sides. Reaching all the way up to standing, getting those hands up above the head. Let's get a couple more here. As we reach those hands up, starting to be aware of the shoulder, keeping it nice and pinned into the torso, away from the ears. And good. All right. Next up, we're going to go down for our quad rocks. Okay, so starting in a lunge position here, we're going to rock back into our heel, extending the foot forward, keeping that toe pointed up, sitting into a little hamstring stretch, and then coming forward into a lunge, working that opposite hip and leg, and coming back, and moving forward. Couple more here. Again, trying to keep that torso nice and tall, not rounding out the back too much as we move through here, keeping that belly button sucked to the spine, and switching sides. Rocking back into the heel, and popping up and forward, getting a nice stretch in either direction. Few more. And done. All right, good. Next up, we're going to do our shoulder cars. So this stands for circular articular rotation, CARS. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to extend our hand up and out with the thumb pointed up towards the ceiling. As we bring that hand up, or that arm next to the ear, the hand is going to flip over and open out towards the outside of our hip. As we bring that hand back in towards the circle, we're flipping the hand over, facing inside again, and then extending back the other way, rotating the hand out as it passes the hip, and back in towards the middle as it comes back towards the head. Switching sides, bringing that thumb up towards the ceiling, hand gets towards the ears, And we're flipping over as it comes down to the hip. The palm is facing inside again, coming up and rotating around. Now you want to try and think about your shoulders having two headlights facing the ground, and you want to try and keep both of those headlights pointed towards the ground as you come up and out with that shoulder. So you're not rotating the chest open, but keeping those headlights pointed down, flashing the ground. We'll go one more on each side here, each direction. And good. All right, getting into our circuit here, we're gonna start with our marches. So feet directly below the hips, and we're bringing the knees up, marching up, nice and quick, trying to stay in the same position, not moving too much side to side, bringing our feet right back down to that starting spot. We're going 45 seconds on, 15 seconds off for these exercises today. Let's go, keep it up. A couple more seconds. Driving that knee straight up to the chest. Trying to get those hips at 90 degrees. And rest. Good. Next up, we have our zombie kicks. So we're going to be kicking the leg straight out, bringing our opposite hand to foot. Okay, so timer's on. We're kicking straight out, keeping that chest up, trying to get that feet and leg up as high as it'll go. For 45 seconds here, finding a good pace. Alternating back and forth. Nice, even work through the legs. Few more seconds and done. Good. Next up, we've got our bent over A's. So we're gonna drive our hips back, starting with our hips directly over the feet. So feet about hip width apart, driving the hips back. We're gonna get our hands out to the side and bring the fists up, back and behind, pushing the fists through so we keep the shoulders nice and low. If you can imagine having an orange on your back and you're trying to squeeze all the juice out of the orange by pinching those shoulder blades together, making a nice A shape through the arms here. Few more seconds. And rest. Good. Next up, we're going into our snow angels. So laying down on the ground, we're going to start with our hands out in front. Popping the hands up off the ground. We're going to make big breaststroke motion to bring the hands behind the hips and coming back forward. Now staying up off the ground the whole time. We're going to repeat through the same motion. And just like in those cars, those hands are going to be flipping over about halfway through the stroke motion here. Keeping those shoulders pulled away from the ears, squeezing that orange taped to your back. Few more seconds. And rest. Good. Next up, we have our shoulder taps. So you can hit these with your knees down or bring the feet up. Bring them a bit wider than your hips. And we're going to alternate opposite hand to shoulder, balancing our stability through one arm and both of our feet planted down here. Finding a nice, even pace. All right, couple more seconds. Try and pick up the pace here for the last little bit. Moving those hands faster and faster. About 5 more seconds. And rest. Good. Next up, we're going to do our rotating push-up. So I recommend starting on your knees for this one and then progressing to feet back. But we're just going to lower ourselves down to the ground, keeping our elbows pinned to the ribs, pressing up and rotating one hand up as we come up to the top. Lowering down, pressing back, and rotating up. Keeping those shoulders pulled back, squeezing that orange on our back as we lower the body down and press back up. Let's go a few more seconds. And finish. Good. Next up, we have our reverse lunges. So getting onto our feet, we're going to be stepping back into a lunge, giving a little twist at the bottom as we come down. Giving just a little bit of rotation across that knee, keeping the weight over the midpoint of the foot, driving straight up through the knee. Slight rotation and back up, keeping that torso nice and tall. We're not rounding out the back, keeping our chest proud. Few more seconds. And done. Good. All right. Soon here, hopping back into the top with our marches. So feet about hip width apart. We're going to drive our knees up, alternating each foot, marching in place, trying to bring those feet right back down to where we started. A nice, even pace. Try and get those feet moving a little quick here. Short time, a little bit extra work. Few more seconds. And rest. Nice job. All right, next up, we have our zombie kicks. Okay, so getting our feet into that hip width position. We're gonna kick straight out, bring opposite hand to toe. Trying to keep that knee straight, chest proud, back straight. Finding a nice little rhythm here as we work across the body. Tapping back and forth. Few more seconds. And finish. Nice job. Next up, we have our bent over A's. So feet still hip width apart. We're going to drive those hips back, lower the chest over the midpoint of the foot, get our hands by the hips, and driving those fists back and through. We're squeezing those shoulder blades together, juicing that orange on our back, really pulling the shoulders away from the ears, trying to punch those fists all the way through. Few more. And done. Good. Next up, we have our snow angels. So getting down to the ground here, extending the hands out in front. We're going to be popping up, bringing the hands up and giving nice broad strokes, keeping our hands up the whole time, pulling those shoulders nice and low. Keeping that orange squeeze through the back, turning the hands over at about halfway. Let's go, about 15 more seconds. Almost there, and done. Good. Next up, we're doing our shoulder taps. So, starting with the hands directly below the shoulders, getting those feet a little bit wider than the hips, and alternating back and forth. Getting a quick pace here. Trying to really work that shoulder stability so the hips are staying nice and level. Not too much movement through the torso. If you notice yourself kind of rocking back and forth, you can try widening the feet a little bit for some more stability. Almost there, about 5 more seconds. And rest. Good. Next up, we're going into our rotating push-up. So we're going to start with that hand below the shoulder position again, either on your knees or with your feet extended back. We're going to lower down, press, and rotate up. Keeping our shoulders pulled back, squeezing that orange as we lower our body down and press up. Belly button sucked up to the spine, keeping our ribs nice and tucked to our elbows, or elbows tucked to ribs rather. But just nice, even, rotating press through the chest here. Last one. And done. Good. Nice job. Next up, we have our rotating reverse lunges. That is indeed correct. I do know what I'm talking about. All right. So feet about hip width apart. We're going to step back into a reverse lunge and rotate across that knee with just a slight twist. Keeping our feet nice and even. Weight over the midpoint of the foot, right inside that arch We're not falling too far to the outside, not too far onto the toes or the heels, but right in the middle of our foot, nice and balanced. A few more seconds. And rest. Good. Nice job, everyone. We're going to head into our cool down portion for the remainder of our time here. So, first thing we're going to do is work on our hamstrings. The ever tightening hamstrings, always tight. We're going to sit down into a seated position with our legs extended out. And while we're doing this stretch here, I want you to think about trying to flex the quads as we're reaching forward. So by doing that, you want to try and pull the knees into the ground as we lean forward. So I'm going to run my hands down my shins, tuck my hands underneath my ankle so I can get a good anchor to lower my chest into the body. And as I start lowering, I'm actively going to pull my knee down into the ground. If you can reach your toes, go ahead, grab your toes or your feet and pull those knees down into the ground. So there's a concept with flexibility called reciprocal inhibition, where the tightness in one muscle, such as the quad, might lead to an over tightness in another muscle, like your hamstrings, which is why we're trying to activate the quads as we're stretching the hamstrings so that those muscles learn to work together and release the tension. Holding for just a little bit longer. Take a nice deep breath and relax out. All right. This next one we're going to do is our hurdler stretch. So pulling one foot back, bending the knee, getting that ankle right by the hip. We're going to keep our front leg extended out as we gently, slowly lower the body down, either staying in a elbow supported position, a hand supported position, or trying to work your way all the way flat down to the ground on your back. Getting nice deep breaths, letting that hip flexor and quad just kind of release and relax. Oftentimes when I do these stretches, I can feel some tension in my chest, almost like I'm getting my breath taken away. My body starts panicking, and I gotta remember that it's just physical stress exposing itself and physical tension in my body exposing itself. So really breathing through that discomfort and allowing my body to relax really just releases a lot of stress and tension that gets built up in our muscles. All right, go ahead and roll out to the side, bringing yourself up, extending that leg out, and bringing our other leg back, folding back, getting that heel towards the hip, and lowering our body down, either into a hand or elbow supported position, or if you can, get your back all the way down to the ground. You might feel more tension on one side than the other. That's very, very normal to have imbalances like that. It's very common that our body will favor one side over the other and find tension in one side over the other, even if it's not your dominant side that's feeling the tension, or maybe it is your dominant side that's feeling the tension. In that case, you can kind of use your understanding of these stretches to see how your body is working from side to side, which side might be a little bit more tight. For me, my right leg is really feeling this stretch versus my left. It's sort of just in it. Few more seconds here. And rolling up to the side, popping ourselves back up and extending the leg back out. Very good. And with that, we're going to call it for today. Appreciate you all hopping in and getting a nice little workout in. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's anything that you would like to see more of or less of as you come into these classes, don't feel afraid to give me a shout and let me know. I would love to tailor it as best I can for your guys' experience. So thank you so much for coming in. Don't forget to check out our other classes on SharePoint. You guys are always so good about coming in anyways, so not worried about it. Keep up the great work, everyone.
Thanks, Quinn.
Thank you.